Sure.
Let you kick us off there.
Sure thing. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us on your Friday morning. We've got a very cool, different approach to the webinar today, so we hope you enjoy. In terms of format, everybody's going to be giving a bit of a TED Talk style speech about their, experience of pivoting business operations. You're welcome to submit your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to answer everything. The webinar is being recorded. There will be a follow-up. You will have access to this recording after the call. You're welcome to share it with your friends and colleagues. And once again, we thank you for joining us. So I'll pass on to Rob and Andrew Waite to introduce the panelists themselves, and we'll get going. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christina. Really appreciate you setting us up there and for getting us all organized, because I know sure as hell if we left it up to Waity, we'd still be struggling. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on this cool day on the 15th of May. Restrictions are easing around the country. New South Wales leading the charge. I know that Drew from Ship It is really keen to get out on the town tonight, and I hope you're all having a boozy brunch like Andrew will be tomorrow as well. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that's super close to my heart. It's around pivoting business operations with strong leadership. And to be joined by no better people than these four lovely guests that we have today, talk about their leadership, their observations, their experiences in kind of helping pivot their business operations through a period of overwhelming demand or even shifting demand, as most of you would be experiencing today. So I hope you take something away from today, as they'll be sharing some really impressive talks, which I've had the privilege of seeing prior to them sharing it today. So we'll kind of start with a bit of an introduction, and then we'll move into our kind of rapid fire talks, and each speaker will be giving a 7-minute talk like Christina said. So let's start with some introductions. Firstly, this webinar is kind of hosted by the Rocketeers of Retail, founded and created by a collaboration between Ship It and Convert Digital. Myself, Rob Hangozada, joint CEO and co-founder of Ship It. Really passionate about seeing e-commerce businesses grow and seeing us really grow the pie for the market. Waity, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Andrew Waite. I'm the Managing Director of Convert Digital. We're an e-commerce design, development and systems integration agency based in Melbourne and Sydney. We're a Magento partner, Shopify partner and BigCommerce partner. So Kyle, I've got my BigCommerce mug today as Kyle from BigCommerce is joining us. So back over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much. And just to throw to our speakers, I'll probably let them introduce themselves very briefly, but perhaps we can start with Drew. Drew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, yeah, I'm Drew Lucas. I worked for Ship It for the past couple of years. I head up our support operations, primarily offshore, but also streamlining processes along the way.
Good stuff. Thank you, Drew. And now we'll throw to Pedro from Coffee Parts.
Thank you, Rob. I'm Pedro from Coffee Parts. We basically run an online company selling coffee gear, so machines, parts, accessories, and yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
Good stuff. And Mina, do you want to introduce yourself, mate?
Sure. Thanks, Rob. So my name is Mina. I am the online operations leader for Decathlon Australia, and we are a sporting goods retailer.
Terrific. Great to have you on board. Thank you. And Kyle.
Hey guys, my name is Kyle Rifkin. I work with BigCommerce, so specifically working with our technology partners like Ship It, and really glad to be here and supporting this awesome initiative that Rob and Andrew run.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kyle. All right, so as you can see, we've got quite the lineup today to get through. So I'm going to just kind of finalize a little bit more of the kind of setup here. As Christina mentioned before, if you've got any questions that you want to ask during the talks, please do raise a question using the Q&A button on your Zoom panel. If you can't figure that out, then we also have our Slack community that we've kind of built as well. We'll be sharing a link during this chat to help you join in. And we have different channels where the speakers will be more than happy to sort of jump in and further the conversation with you then. Without further ado, why don't we jump into our first talk of the day? Drew, I'm going to hand over to you. Get us started.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be representing Shipit here on this panel. I guess I've already introduced myself and kind of what I do, but more into the detail. I'm really interested in customer centricity in parallel with system automations, and things that really work for everyone's this business, but everyone's in general. I guess what we need to what during the COVID times, what we needed to improve on was how to make effective changes, and first to understand what key areas they were to improve on. So 2 things we identified as critical to improving that experience is 1, reducing the number of new tickets that enter our queue. So this will not only help avoid us from bringing on new staff, but also ease the pressure on our agents that may already be on a pathway to burnout. And I'm sure that everyone else can kind of relate to these challenging times too. And number 2, increase the user experience, which in turn will increase our customers' satisfaction. And for us, that's currently taking a hit due to much longer wait times than normal. So if we're talking about pivoting towards improved experiences, referencing those 2 main focuses that I mentioned just now, I'll talk through a few key things that we've already implemented to improve that experience since this whole pandemic started. Kicking off with user experience. We introduced targeted messaging upon ticket creation. Now, that sounds pretty straightforward, especially in a support function, yet proving very effective for us because instead of blanket robotic responses acknowledging a request, we actually broke those down into the top categories and asked ourselves, what do these people really want to know from us at that given point in time? So we tailored the messaging that gives them relevant information, including expected delivery timeframes, and really painting a picture of what exactly happens to parcels between, behind the scenes, such as bouncing between various depots. That obviously helps put them at ease a little bit more. And we went even further with that in the sense that we also asked customers to help us prioritize replies, in which was a completely different approach, because even though the amount of requests we received, we realized that most of them were following up on a delivery ETA, and a part of those, at least 60% of those were actually delivered within 3 business days of the expected timeframe anyway. So after 3 days, after receiving the first automated message, which is when they submitted the request, 3 days obviously is not part of our normal service level, so we acknowledge that. And if they still hadn't received a reply during that time, we sent out another follow-up automated message, but this time with more of a human and relatable feel. So essentially asking them to simply let us know if that parcel had been delivered and if it still requires attention. So by adding that more empathetic approach to your wording and actually owning your downfalls as a business, this 2-way approach worked really well for us in order to triage and get through tickets a lot faster. Another initiative we implemented was by looking at data, we realized that some of the courier drivers had started, due to the pressure and stress, started bulk scanning the items as completed before it actually reached the recipient's household. So that scan event, for context, triggers an automatic email notification to the recipient saying your parcel has been delivered. But when they went outside or realized they didn't get a knock on the door, started to obviously freak out and wanted to know exactly what happened. So using data, which is very important for making any business decisions, we realized and could average out the time frame of, right, if they were start scanning them at the beginning of that driver run, it usually took them about 1 to 2 hours for them to actually complete it. And then after that point, we should start sending notifications from there. So that in itself reduced the amount of angst that a receiver may have had, and also the amount of requests that came through our backlog. So it wasn't adding too much additional pressure to our support team loads. So I guess in summary, really take the time to dive into your customers' feedback and start implementing things that are actually within your control. You might be relying on third parties, such as what we are with carriers, but there's usually quick fixes you can do to improve that experience from your end. Now, to reduce the backlog, I'll talk through more project-based initiatives that we've implemented. So these are equally as important to work on in order to set your business up for scalability, so we can come out of this quite well as well. So first, we streamline the way customers submit support requests in the first place. So for context, we've been sending all of our tracking update notifications from our general support email, which naturally made it difficult to structure these requests to include all information that agents might need to provide quick assistance. So to ensure tracking information is actually digested before submitting a request, we defined a pathway in which they're presented with all the relevant information, such as expected delivery delays, and a bit more reassurance that it's definitely still on its way, especially if it's within the defined ETA. If they'd like to proceed with a request after the parcel's past that ETA, we do have clear messaging now that states we will be coordinating with the carrier on their behalf, just to make it that little bit more obvious that we often do rely on carriers for these updates, which may take additional time to get back to them. In addition, and on the back of that, that new tool, it was now possible for us to increase agent efficiency, which in turn allowed them to get through the backlog quicker. In order to do that, we have now started to enrich all of our new requests with pre-filled data that an agent might otherwise need to navigate to another screen to view. So having agents work out of a single tool for the majority of inquiry types has reduced 1 to 2 minutes of agent time on average for each ticket. So you can imagine that on top of an already inflated backlog, being able to get through them much quicker was also quite important to do. So again, in summary, investing time into longer term solutions in parallel with short-term wins is definitely a worthwhile approach as well. I realize I only had 5 minutes to speak to you guys, but I hope that was insightful nonetheless, and you got a few takeaways from that.
Drew, thank you so much for sharing that, mate. And I can, firsthand attest to the hard work that you've been putting in to kind of scale our operations during this crazy time. I think it might just be helpful just helping people understand the volume changes that you've observed, in the team, and particularly like how that's strained your headcount, because we have an increased headcount at the same time, right?
Exactly. Yeah, good point. With regards to, I guess to put it in context, our recent Christmas peak volume of tickets was ballpark 5,000. Now, it's already it's actually past triple the amount of volume that we received at Christmas peak. And that's obviously inflating as our delivery volume increases as well. So the fact that we have tripled that and not increased headcount in any way, we obviously had to make really cutthroat decisions on what we could automate, what we could be scrappy with, just to ride out the wave, really.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Drew, and really appreciate your story. What we'll do is we'll kind of synthesize a bit of the insights that we hear across the speakers. But if you do have questions for Drew, please do drop them in using your Zoom Q&A button. We'll probably shift gears now as well and come to our next speaker. So Pedro, we're now on to you, mate. Do you want to talk us through how you've scaled your operations through this crazy time as well?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We were kind of super lucky that we saw this coming kind of early. My mum had specialized in tropical diseases when she studied med back in the early 80s. So she was like freaking out and paranoid early January. So by mid-January, I was having chats with suppliers in China because of their Christmas, New Year, and that made me concerned based on what they were saying. With a lot of our suppliers in Italy, China, and Japan, as those countries were affected, we started having open conversations with them. At first, they were telling us everything was okay, because ultimately they just wanted to sell more product. But after explaining we're on a shared journey, they really opened up. So I feel like having open conversations with them helped really early on to know what the roadmap ahead might look like for us. So these talks led me to cancel all travel late January and really focus on operations. At the time, it wasn't really being spoken in Sydney, COVID, so kind of felt like I was going a little bit crazy. but we based our timeline on the Qantas planes being grounded till mid-September. So we figured they would have better access to government information than we would. So that became kind of our timeline in terms of what to look out for and what to worry. And we also decided very early on that we wouldn't pivot. Like, pivoting didn't feel right for us. We truly believe in what we do. We love our company. We love the product. So we viewed the change as we had to adapt to the market conditions and adapt the conditions to our products rather than focusing our energies on new areas. This helped a lot with getting the right stock in and also clearing out stock that we thought might not move if we went into a lockdown like we were seeing in Italy. So with our product range being quite stable, we knew that worst case, even by increasing stock in some areas, we could sell it for Christmas. So we weren't really worried about overstocking or understocking at that stage. When the lockdown came into force in Sydney, that weekend, basically our wholesale disappeared overnight, but retail took off. And that's when things started changing a lot. Till that point, COVID felt to be moving really, really slowly. And we thought we'd actually overreacted. Yet from that point on, things have started changing fast and daily. Almost overnight, our warehouse operations were completely different. So we had a huge surge in order volume, and that led to a huge surge in customer service needs, like you guys mentioned, with extra delay in shipping, people asking where their order is, etc. So that led to a lot of pressure on our team. I decided to come in and pack orders for a day. I actually came in on the weekend into the warehouse and packed because I wanted to see how things were really happening. Like, over the years, it kind of distanced myself a little bit from like the actual pick and packing. So I spent a day picking orders and packing it to really work out the process, and also spent a day answering customers both on emails and phones and kind of seeing where the issues were so we could basically buy time. From that, we changed the warehouse layout to speed up pick and packing of small orders. Because our order volume increased, but the orders became quite small, this meant a completely different way of packing orders. We had to pack faster. We also needed a lot more bench space to pack a lot more smaller orders rather than pallet size orders. So we moved to wave picking. To do this, we actually also closed our showroom, both for the safety of the team, but also to allow extra bench space and more benches. So we had more room between staff members to pack. We also added casual. So that was a little bit complicated because generally when we add staff, we have time to onboard and for people to shadow. In this case, people were just like literally learning to swim straight away. So the onboarding process changed, which will probably help in the future. We moved onboarding basically to a lot of little videos so they could just watch a little video on how to do something rather than read or shadow. We also saw a lot of repeat questions. And so as the communications were getting clogged, we decided to add better communications on email, transactional emails, and the phone system to kind of alert customers, and actually signed off all with my name so that they felt a bit more personal, and letting them know we knew that there were delays and there were issues and that we were working with them, not against them. That helped a lot. The time became like the most valuable commodity, and all decisions were actually based on saving time. We basically gave our developers unlimited budget of hours to build anything the team asked. And to speed this up, we also gave the team, everyone, even the casuals, access on Slack to talk directly with the developers without needing any approval. So what happened was any change was encouraged if it saved time or added to customer experience. We actually just closed our eyes to if there was actually even going to be a return on it. As long as it improved the slightest, we did it. Our mindset has always been pre-COVID, and especially through COVID, that there's only two approaches to a situation, either love or fear. So for us, choosing love was a no-brainer. It allows for creativity, faster solutions, and really benefits the team, suppliers, and customers, or the coffee lovers. So looking back through the journey, especially the last few months, I think what worked was having time, like everything that brought us time, using data to buy time effectively by seeing what were the issues and being proactive about those issues, and choosing solutions based on love and not fear. So that's what helped for us, and I'm happy to talk deeper on any item later if anyone wants.
Awesome, Pedro. Thank you very much. Look, I think, you know, just a tremendous job. And firstly, you know, looking like the crazy person who's overreacted to COVID early on. Clearly, access to information is a really big one. And I think I really loved your comment around using Qantas as that parallel and kind of figuring out what they're doing and sort of replicating their response in a coffee parts business, right? So look, really well done. And I think there's definitely a lot of learning through what you did, and particularly in opening up the purse strings for the team to speak to developers is probably the other thing which would have freaked a lot of other people out. But I think operating with love is a really important message that you shared. So I'd love to learn more about that, probably post this as well, Pedro. Thank you for sharing, mate. So as we kind of move from coffee and kind of stay on the point of rapid retail growth, let's walk into decathlon. So no doubt, Mina, with the shift in kind of what we're able to do with social activities and all that sort of stuff and keeping kids busy, as I know, I'm constantly looking for new ways to keep them occupied. Mate, do you want to talk through kind of what you saw at decathlon and how things changed there?
Yeah, for sure. I guess let's just go through it then. So for those who actually don't know who we are, Decathlon is a sporting goods retailer. And while we may not be known so much in Australia, we're actually very well known globally. And I guess the goal of Decathlon is, our motto really is to make sport accessible to everyone while delighting 100% of our customers. So that's something that was really tested over these strange times. So the metric we really focused on, which isn't too dissimilar to Pedro's, is customer service and really getting customer satisfaction right in the midst of this crisis. And to do this effectively, it involved a really multifaceted approach, which was both agile and reactive, but also, and just as importantly, maybe even more so, preemptive in approach. And to do this, we took three things. Three things that we did, and we'll just go through them really quickly. So the first thing we did is a reallocation of staff. So when COVID started to show its face overseas, we preempted a change was coming. And when looking at the data from overseas, we could see that foot traffic in stores shrunk while the online stores absolutely skyrocketed. And we knew we would face a similar challenge. And this presented a situation because we knew we would have many store staff with very little to do, while our logistics and our customer happiness and our online teams were going to be absolutely swamped. And with this in mind, we immediately began to retrain staff from our physical teams to our online teams to help handle our predicted online activities. And so the reallocation of staff really had two main benefits. The first, it has and it continues to help us get through the large workload for our online activities. And the second is it allows us to retain our staff. The second thing we did for our customers is in relation to fulfillment and delivery from stores. The data told us that our current fulfillment center that we use probably wouldn't be able to handle the increase in online volume. And the data was correct. So to further handle the spike in online demand, we went from one fulfillment center in Sydney to training 3 of our Melbourne stores, eventually opening 2 of them as new fulfillment centers. So taking our total up to 3 fulfillment centers in total. And more fulfillment from store helped to also attack 2 points. The first thing that it helped us with was to handle more orders. And the second thing it helped us with was to increase our stock availability. Bam. And then the cyclone hit. Gyms and sporting facilities were closed. And that was massive. We knew we now had a lot of customers that more than ever would really be relying on us and then really be counting on us to help them through this difficult time. And we can actually see this in certain departments such as fitness and cycling who saw what could really only be described as hyper growth. And it was insane. And at the time, precautions in Australia were high. Yet Decathlon needed to be unwavering in our commitment to make sport accessible to everyone and to delight all our customers. And that leads me to the last major change that we made. We adjusted our click and collect strategy. After some quick analysis, we identified where the bulk of our customers were actually located. And what we did was we created contactless click and collect pop-up locations that were closer to a large amount of our customers. And it was set up, it was actually set up a lot like something from a spy movie. Our decathlon, or when the order was made, our decathlon van would go and meet each customer at the agreed upon location. The customer was alerted at the time to come. Then our team would drop the package off and stand at a distance. And then when the customer would come, they'd greet each other and be friendly, and then wait for the customer to safely take their package and move along. And then we'd call the next customer to come to the same location and then go through the same process. This actually was quite effective and allowed us to become a lot more available to our customers, which they really appreciated. And we were now able to be in many more locations in a very safe way. So I guess to wrap this up, the most phenomenal part is that we did all three of these major changes. We retrained many of our staff. We launched triple the amount of fulfillment centers and created multiple new contactless click and collect pop-up locations, all in a matter of about 3 to 5 days, which is, I mean, a lot of credit goes to the team. And I know personally, I have a lot to learn. But what I know is that as leaders, especially in the online space, we all need to be very proactive enough to at least guess what could come our way, and agile enough to adjust when that change actually comes. A business needs to continually evolve and stay agile, not just to thrive, but especially in these times, to survive. I genuinely believe online is the future. And in this crisis, I think we all had a bit of a taste of what the future could actually look like. Thank you.
Mina, thank you very much for sharing those insights, mate. And, you know, it probably would have been helpful for Andrew Waite to have learned about the sting operation drop-offs, because he actually had to manually go and visit a gym product supplier and really yell at them about his dumbbells being misplaced.
The communication thing was the problem there, right? Like, Mina, how did you guys manage that? I mean, the issue I had was they opened up the come and collect between this come and collect between a certain time window and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't overly clear to me what time window that was, and I arrived at a time that wasn't suitable and got knocked back. So
right.
I just said refund my order and I'll go somewhere else. So how did you guys communicate with people in such a quick time period about where they could come pick their stuff up?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there was a couple of things that we did. First of all, the website was very clear that this is the window that you will be contacted in if you wanted to go visit one of these locations. The second thing was we sent a confirmation that confirmation by email that the order has been placed and will need to be picked up within this time. And then we also said a confirmation email that the order is now ready to be picked up. And then on top of that, the agent that would be used in the location, so the decathlon staff member, will actually have their number and say, okay, here's the message, just confirm your order number. So the customer would send the order number to confirm that this is all ready. And then the agent would tell them, yes, now it's ready, come and collect. So there was a lot of communication throughout. Naturally, there were a couple of bumps here and there, but overall it was rather successful.
That's awesome. I think, Rob, you'd probably say that's been clear, and like this is what our fourth session doing this since we've gone into lockdown. I think that communication thing has been a consistent throughout, right?
Yeah, absolutely consistent. But Mina, absolutely well done, mate. To make those changes, which are rapid digital transformation in just 3 to 5 days, is ridiculous. So I can imagine it would have sent some waves through the business at that time, with change management kind of being hot on the cards for you guys. So we'd probably love to unpack that a little bit more toward the end in our Q&A. But without further ado, I know you've all been waiting. Kyle from BigCommerce, mate, do you want to get started?
Yeah, for sure. I like kind of starting out any talk, really just kind of looking at the glass that's half empty or half full, I should say. There really is no better time than right now to be in e-commerce, and I think it's really such a, we're all very lucky, right? We're kind of in a position where, yes, we're dealing with a lot of challenges, but just listening to Mina, right, and the creativity that's going on, we are living in the future of retail today because we're all being very scrappy. We're thinking about these challenges in an interesting way, and we're coming up with creative solutions that are going to serve us really well. So there are professionals, whether it's Mina or whether it's people that are listening in, that your career is being forged right now. You're putting in the hard yards right now that's going to serve you well, no matter what happens in the future. So this is, just such an excellent time to be involved. And I think that extends to like on the platform side of things when it comes to e-commerce. Andrew and Rob could interchange me for, say, somebody from Magento, somebody from Shopify, somebody from Commerce Cloud, and they'd probably all tell you the same story that I'm going to tell you from the perspective of the revenue that we see from all of our customers collectively being processed through our platform right now is sky high. It's going through the roof. That should come without any sort of surprise there that, the impetus to go online is really being pushed that much more with everything that's going on. So for us in particular, internally with our product and engineering teams, the common phrase is that essentially every week is a cyber week. So, thinking about Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Cyber Monday, Cyber 5. If you look at the amount of revenue that's being transacted on our platform on a daily basis, they are Cyber 5 type numbers. So really a testament to where the state of e-commerce is at the moment. And then if you kind of flip the other side of it, which is, my purview, which is on the partnership side, I've been really impressed with the partners that we have that serve more of the physical world. So obviously, businesses like ShipIt are dealing more on that e-commerce and sort of the cusp of the physical, right, with that back office last mile type technology. But there's a really great shining example if you think of the point of sale provider Vend, right, where, in a lot of ways, their business is being challenged in a way that it's never been before. But they've done a great job of pivoting their business by almost creating a Red Cross of retail, if you will. So their founder, Vaughn, has done a great job of being a voice of reason through it all. They're providing resources to retailers. They're kind of walking them through what are the stages of both going through the crisis and also what is the recovery going to be. And so it's that give to get type mentality where they're providing overwhelming value to somebody like me on the big commerce side. And so the flywheel effect of that is they've essentially made themselves an irreplaceable piece of value chain for me. And therefore, when all of this gets into somewhat normal, whatever normal is going to look like once we get out of this, I have to find ways, right, to provide that value back. And so it's been really encouraging to see partners like that kind of come together and figure out ways to actually serve you, the retailer, in the best way possible, whether that's giving you the information you need or figuring out ways for you to get online quickly. Now, if we kind of flip the lens again, for us as a business, we really need to do a very careful job at this time in terms of balancing what our needs are, because let's be real, there are salaries to pay at our business, there are bills to pay, but we need to balance that with what are the needs for the retailers. And so we're doing the best that we can at this point in terms of really keeping an empathetic feel in terms of treating, potential customers as humans, not numbers, not metrics, not funnels. And particularly at a marketing standpoint, we're really taking the time to listen to what's going on, because what we're doing right now, today on the 15th of May, wasn't necessarily right on, say, the 30th of April, or it wasn't right on the 15th of April. And so we're really trying to just, rather than diving headlong and kind of throwing ourselves into every little thing that's out there in terms of how do we get our own brand out there, how do we kind of take care of our own needs, let's take a step back and kind of understand where is the sentiment of the market and how can we actually help so that we really, again, going back to what I was talking about before, provide value, because that's the key here, right? We want to make sure that as your partner within retail, that we're giving you insights that make sense, that are applicable, and obviously a piece of technology that's going to serve you well. And you know, I guess to kind of round all of this out, you know, there is, as I was talking about before, the impetus to going online, and it's our job to try and make that as simple as possible, particularly for a merchant that's been offline, making that transition to making online sales. And so really, again, kind of keeping the positive tone here, there's been no better time to be involved in e-commerce than right now, because it is so easy through the developments of technology in the cloud. And, you know, if you can imagine, like, we're very lucky that we didn't go through some kind of pandemic like this back in, say, 2011, right? Where, you know, there wasn't a really great solution like a BigCommerce or a Shopify or whatever it is that you're using that's been easy to set up on, that didn't exist back in 2011. So today is a great day for going through something like this from the perspective of you have the tools and the cloud technologies available to ensure that you have the collaboration with your team, staying connected, you know, listening to the stories of, you know, what Pedro was talking about earlier, right? In terms of engaging developers and making sure that the customer experience is put forward. These aren't kinds of things that we were talking about back then. And so again, from the partnership lens for us, we're really trying to make sure that we're also supporting our brothers and sisters in arms, so our partner community, both on the technology side and the agency side. And so really for us, that involves, you know, how do we go to market together with something that really makes sense for the merchant and again provides value back, whether that's a bundled service or whether that's going out to technology providers and working with them on what we can kind of package together. So for instance, we've gone to market with Ship It for a specific small business offer where we've gone out and said, here's a package solution with Ship It and PayPal for payments. You get 3 months free on BigCommerce, and we'll get you launched in as little as 24 hours with the help of an agency for a low flat fee. So kind of having something that's appropriate for small businesses. We have something that's more appropriate for what we call mid-market or larger retailers. And so, you know, we're just trying to be agile on that front. And then, you know, I guess to kind of tie a bow on it, like, the reality is everybody's going through a hard time. It doesn't mean that we're not being successful or we're not making progress at this point, but there's challenges that everybody's facing. But the important thing is that I think we're all putting in the hard yards right now, both on the retail side, on the supplier side, to make sure that we make our business that much stronger when things level out, right? Like, having that creative thinking is really going to serve us well going into the future. And it's the same for us on the platform side. And as you've heard today through Mina and Pedro, certainly the case for some great retailers out there.
Thank you, Kyle. Kyle, just one question for me, I guess, from your unique purview of the world. Like, what have you noticed the most common questions from retailers have been of BigCommerce and kind of, you know, what they're able to do and what they're not able to do? I mean, where have they tried to bend BigCommerce during this crazy time?
Yeah, I think, you know, to be quite honest, a lot of it has been talking about, okay, great, I have a BigCommerce plan. Now, what are the pieces of technology that I need to plug in to make it work? Or, you know, what can I do to supplement it? So, you know, particularly, again, internally with our team, we're really working hard in terms of making sure that they have really good knowledge across the ecosystem and kind of, I guess, more than ever, really listen to the customer as they're speaking to them, so that they can kind of recommend the right fit for different technologies, whether that's a ship it on the shipping side or say a .digital on the email side, whatever that might be, right? But also we've really kind of doubled down with respect to the post-purchase support and service side that we offer. So we have a pretty strong suite of both self-service offerings for merchants to go through to understand what they need to do to best utilize the platform. But we also, of course, have actual human-to-human type interactions for something around the services side. So certainly there's been a lot of questions about, you know, everything from the basics of I need help to get my products uploaded, all the way to, you know, more complex conversations for, say, some of our larger retailers that are, say, implementing the headless approach, trying to figure out the best way to do that. And we're fortunate where we've invested quite a bit in terms of headcount and can support that quite well.
Got it. Thanks for sharing, Carl, and thank you for sharing your insights, mate. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to throw to some live Q&A. We've had some great questions come through from the panel, from the audience. Wadey is going to kick off our question and answer section.
Yeah, perfect. So there's been a theme across increase in demand, but Drew, one thing you touched on was obviously we've got increasing demand by threefold without increasing headcount and the processes and changes you guys have put to manage that. Have you been able to measure customer satisfaction, customer experience through that transition? Have you seen a dip? What's the consensus there?
Yeah, great question. I think the reason why we came up with different strategies to implement quite quickly was because we saw a decrease in satisfaction in general. So in order to really measure that, it's not just responses from emails that our agents have responded to. It's also keeping a pulse on product reviews that you might receive, or NPS surveys that might come through. So it's really a various channels of feedback that you can see online and within your own organization's feedback loops.
Pedro, have you sort of mentioned the increased demand and how that's affecting you guys? What are you seeing as far as measuring customer satisfaction and customer experience?
That's been a tricky one, just because the expectations have changed a lot in the timeframes. We're still measuring the same way, so we're using a review platform. In our case, we use Trustpilot, and everything has reviews too. Even our email platform has reviews. So our reviews have declined slightly through this period. We've worked hard to try and solve them, but the influx has caused some reduced reviews. But the way we've kind of tried to solve it was to be more proactive in terms of giving customers a true expectation, not promising the world and delivering an atlas. Just being really upfront on our website, like very clear messaging that we actually kind of took a bit of Shipit's messaging in terms of the expected 3 days delays and etc. We were quite clear that the airplanes had been grounded and there was going to be more road freight. We delays at each border crossing, even though Australia Post doesn't get tested through the border crossing, there's still extra traffic. So we're very open in our communications, but yeah, we still struggle with it.
How do you deal with the shit?
With a what?
How do you deal with the shit when it does come in?
You know, you can only do so much. Like, we're just very honest and apologize. There's sometimes people can be a bit unreasonable, but you got to understand that they might be in a position where they could be at home unhappy and could be just their moment to vent. So understanding that everyone's a human and a lot of people are suffering. So we try to take a position of empathy and not go, you know, this person's unreasonable. More, look, they could have something in their life going on. And what can we do best to help within reason? And there's some situations we can't, but most like, honestly, even people that were a little bit upset were just upset due to lack of communications, that they weren't informed of the delays or might not have expected it. They're obviously in a different reality than we are. And once we kind of open and honest and we're just humans. We're quite a fairly young team. Some have young kids here. Most people have empathy. Like, it's been all right.
Yeah. The more transparent and open you are, the more forgiving people are going to be. So yeah, it's certainly been a trend on our side too. Like, over communication is just what you have to do. Obviously the key part there is just, do you have the right, foundational elements in place, whether it's a flow set up in something like, a .digital or a Klaviyo or, MailChimp, whatever it is that you're using to kind of trigger off the right communications there. And to Pedro's point, using tools like Trustpilot, like, to me, that's when you kind of, you need to think 2 to 3 steps ahead of where you are at any given point. And so this is really the time when you should be gathering those reviews, particularly if you have the mindset of Pedro in terms of treating people like humans. You have a really good heart at what you're doing, because then you can kind of capture all of those good reviews, the positive stories, and obviously, you get some shit ones and you deal with that the best way you can. And everybody has bad days, but if you can get good feedback now, that's only going to serve you that much better once we get out of something like this.
Yeah, it's funny, right, Kyle? Like, you sort of mentioned that thing with Vend about them becoming a trusted advisor in the software space, even though potentially they're getting hit right now. We will come out of this in some capacity, and the reputation that they're gaining now for the other end of it's going to be super important.
Just really quickly on that one. One thing we did that worked really well, and it's probably super simple and literally costs nothing more than 5 minutes, was on the transactional emails. So whatever e-commerce platform you're using, on the orders being sent or your shipments being sent, we kind of just put in expectations there really politely. That helped a lot. Me personally, buying from other sites, that everyone's still running the same transactional emails. So that's probably a really easy win.
Adding some context. And Mina, just over to you. On as far as obviously the fulfillment side of things is concerned, with the increase in demand on things like bikes and some of the bulky goods, how have you managed that? And then on the other side, any change in reverse logistics? Are you seeing anything there? Oh, we got you there, Mina.
Must be some connection issues in the Blue Mountains there.
The Blue Mountains.
Yeah. That's all right. I mean, Rob, you can probably talk to this. I know we've touched.
Yeah.
We got Mina back online, but what across the Ship It network and the retailer network?
Look, it's from our purview and from kind of what Drew's been dealing with and the broader kind of professional services team, is we've certainly seen a massive pivot in a lot of our omni-channel retailers. There was kind of a 2-stage process. One was shut all the stores, bring all the stock back to our central fulfillment location. Then there was a flip a couple of weeks after that to reopen stores as dark stores and fulfillment locations and kind of spread the load, particularly for those experiencing tremendous growth. I think the double impact for a lot of retailers was, when they shifted all online order dispatching back to a warehouse, you kind of had increased volume, and coupled with that was a change in the pick and pack process. So unfortunately, they didn't go the way that Pedro went in kind of, streamlining that pick and pack process. They actually slowed it down somewhat to ensure it was a safe pick and pack process to limit the spread of COVID as well. So with that compounding impact, they actually saw a massive slowdown in their fulfillment speeds. And so to spread the load across the networks again meant they could speed up their fulfillment speeds. I think it was a really big wake-up call for a lot, and you've kind of seen that famous tweet of like what drove digital transformation in your organization, and the big red one was COVID, right? To Kyle's point, we're living in the future already. This is kind of the stuff that a lot of businesses were hoping to invest in the next year, 2 years, 3 years on their roadmap, and it's kind of just leapfrogged instantly. So it's a shame Mina's gone static in the mountains there, but I think we could learn a lot from how they basically jammed 3 years of digital transformation into 3 days. We've certainly seen that for our business. Drew can attest to this. We kind of had all these plans to optimize our support flows and things like that. Probably a year ahead on our roadmap that we've had to just fast track as well. Mina seems to be back. potentially on audio. He's joining.
Hey, there he is.
Away you go, Mina. I've just been talking shit so that I could fill some air. How did you jam, like, you know, so much digital transformation inside a week?
As in the changes we made? Yeah, it was rough.
Talk us through like the change management, like, you know, how do you actually just get the green light, the funding, the budget, the suppliers, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So the process was basically just and the probably most important part of all the changes we made really was that we preempted a lot of it. We saw what was happening overseas, and based on the data, we made decisions fairly early, and they weren't very panic-based decisions. So we were able to make really good decisions and adapt really quickly when the changes happen. So we already planned to, say, for example, retrain our staff before things started shutting. We already were in the process of, I mean, I have to admit, ShipIt helped a lot with setting up the fulfillment from stores. They were so quick. They did it all in more or less one and a half, 2 days. Just setting up so really well done, Drew and the team. Aaron, I have to give a big shout out to Aaron and the team over there. Our account manager, he's awesome. And our IT team, our tech guys, we were all working like dogs, really, just absolutely smashing through it. My directors, or my manager, really, he was fully on board. It's my P&L anyway, so I'm the one really paying for it. So in terms of costing, I was very quick to justify it in the turnover versus the spend. So the ROI was quite good based on rough calculations that we had. So there was no real, it was really a fairly simple decision. It didn't involve more than looking at the data. The data told us the story, and we can say the turnover was going to increase. This is the way we handle it. Otherwise, we won't be able to handle the online orders. It just wasn't going to work. We had to open multiple locations, and we had to retrain staff that weren't being used. Otherwise, there's a chance they may not have a job, and we didn't want that, of course. So we moved them to areas that they really needed in, and it just all worked out really well. It was a simple pivot, really. I don't know if that answers your question, Rob. But,
probably a really good segue, actually. I know, like at Convert, we're starting to map out what this go back to work plan looks like. And, you know, we've had some things like yourself, Mina, opening up different locations for pickup, and Pedro doing video onboarding. What's going to stick when we do get back to some sort of norm or some sort of reality? I don't know, maybe Mina, we'll go back to you to kick us off. What changes have you guys put in place that you think you'll retain throughout this normality?
One thing that I really liked, which we were heading towards anyway, but really came to life recently, is a flexible workforce. It's the ability to move staff wherever they were needed in order to meet certain demands. And Pedro actually said it as well. It's the use of casual staff. I don't think that can be stressed enough, that having a flexible workforce to meet demands is not only good for the overall costs that you're saving, it gives people jobs and an opportunity as well, which is also great. And it just helps you handle your demand much easier. So for those three reasons alone, I think a flexible workforce is definitely the direction that Decathlon personally will be heading towards. And I think a lot of companies, especially retail, should really look towards as well.
Pedro, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, probably going to work actually and build up better even the onboarding for flexible workforce, so we could scale and or not depending on peaks. And so when this all happened, obviously if you could work from home, you were meant to. So everyone like accounts and that went home. We needed the room, so their tables became pick pack benches, and I don't see them working from the warehouse in future anymore. It actually works well with Slack and communication, probably even better. And probably the last thing is probably we're dedicating a little too much room to the showroom. Kind of liking having more pack area. So actually what you can see behind me, that was a showroom 3 weeks ago. It's now full of shelves and boxes. But yeah, that might stay that way. We'll see.
What's
Hey,
the
Pedro,
Go ahead.
you mentioned about like doing videos. Like, is it as simple as you just did something on your iPhone and distribute it that way? Like, I'm assuming you don't have anything like fancy set up for that yet, right?
It was actually super simple. So
Yeah.
it was either screen recording, if it's like I don't know, how to print a pick slip or something like that, it was a screen recording. If it was how to, you know, walk around the warehouse and what areas, I mean, everything has a stock location, but just to make it easier, it was just a DJI Osmo walking around the warehouse.
Yeah.
All simple
awesome.
videos, then put into, we used Monday, but whatever it could be, we looked at using Process Street, just putting, so how to print a pick slip, just watch in that case, like a 30-second video.
It's awesome. Doesn't need to be fancy, right? Like,
No.
just
So good.
hack it together.
We've been thinking about doing it for a year or two. We just never did it. And then we had to. So.
There you go. All right, guys, look, I think we're fast running out of time. We've kind of got 2 minutes left on the clock. I wanted to just take a moment just to kind of synthesize everything that we've learned today. There's so much more that I guess we could learn from all of you. So if you're willing, we'd love you to kind of jump into the Slack channel, and a reminder for everyone on the call to join the Slack community. Was there anything you wanted to kind of say, any promotions or anything like that you wanted to kind of announce from each of your businesses in terms of what you wanted to offer the audience today as well?
I can hop in here. You know,
Sure.
BigCommerce has a few different ones. Like I mentioned before, if you're a smaller retailer just going online, we have something set up with Ship It, where on the BigCommerce side, you get 3 months free. So I apologize, Rob, I don't remember the specifics on the Ship It side, but it's obviously, it's quite compelling to kind of get your business off the ground and running. And then we also, of course, have some packages set up if you're a more mature retailer as well. So Christina will have some of those links once we come out of here.
Cool. Mina, Pedro.
I hadn't thought of it, but
We'll share it on Slack. No pressure.
Perfect. No pressure.
The code won't be active yet because obviously I just thought of it now, but I made the code Ship It and every order will get 250 pounds.
No, we did 50% off. So
yeah. Look, no pressure, guys. Look, if there is anything, we'll share it in the Slack channel under promotional offers and stuff like that. Good way to drum up business for our great partners today. So well done. Look, I've certainly learned a lot. You know, even just being able to pivot kind of the pick and pack processes and how we can probably help merchants with that. You know, understanding the importance of data and the customer experience, really listening to what people are asking for. But I think the most overwhelming point, and we kind of had this discussion internally at Ship It with our COO lately, which is, you know, you can kind of look at operations in the traditional sense, but operations is the outcome of human interactions and experience. And I think if we're all able to absolutely nail a better customer experience, naturally our operations will be better. And I think acting with love and empathy, you know, as shared by Pedro, as backed up by Kyle and by Mina and Drew today, I think that's the key message we can all take away from this. So how do we sometimes slow down the thinking in order to speed it up by really listening to what our customers want and having some great empathy around that, and empathy for our staff as well, listening to their feedback, listening to what they actually want that will make their life better, and spending some time in their shoes, I think is really important for all of those who attended today. So guys, I want to really thank you very much for your generosity in preparing. I know a 7-minute TED Talk with dead air and silence in the background is a little bit unnerving, but thank you very much. Christina, I'll probably hand to you to kind of wrap things up completely.
That's cool. Just to reiterate Rob's point, thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Awesome insights. I've just shared the link to the Slack channel over on the chat. It'll be great to see you all there. Kyle, I'm particularly interested in those slide decks that you were talking about, so please let me know when I can share them in the Slack, and yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy your day and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.